Now, Amnesty International says European governments have been complicit in the abuse and torture of migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean from Libya. Amnesty has blamed the European Union, which has given training and funding to the Libyan Coast Guard, for what it says is effectively trapping migrants and refugees hoping to make the crossing to Italy. According to Amnesty, the EU's actions to prevent illegal migration have trapped 20,000 people in Libya in overcrowded and unsanitary detention centres. The NGO said European governments were complicit in grave human rights violations through their support for Libyan authorities that often work with people smugglers and torture refugees and migrants. The rescue organisation Sea-Watch released this footage of a Libyan Coast Guard operation last month. Sea-Watch said it shows Coast Guard members wrestling with a migrant who then falls off the side grabbing a rope as the vessel begins to power away. Europe has seen a big downturn in the number of migrants crossing from Libya to Italy in the first 11 months of this year, falling by a third since 2016. The EU said most of the actions called for by Amnesty are already being carried out and that it's working to legally resettle thousands of genuine refugees. Well, joined now by Evon, Idahosa, a campaigner against modern slavery in sub-Saharan Africa and founder of the Pathfinders Justice Initiative, which aims to eradicate the exploitation of women in the developing world. You work with a lot of refugees, especially those who end up back in Africa, or Nigeria specifically. Yeah. I mean, can you explain this allegation against Europe? I mean, a lot of people will say, look, Europe has taken in millions of people. How can it be complicit in the torture of refugees?
Well, I think essentially what happened is that last year alone, Italy specifically received 180-something thousand people. I think what essentially was happening was that Italy got fed up. A lot of people were complaining, Italians specifically, about the mass migration into Italy, and Italy wasn't getting as much help as it needed from the European Union. And so they essentially went to the Libyan government and asked the government to do essentially whatever they needed to do to keep the migrants there. The Libyan government then outsourced that job to the militias, who were the smugglers in the first place, who were the ones putting the people on the boats, and ultimately were then rescuing the people after that, and these people end up in the detention centers. And so, I mean, there's certainly enough blame to go around, but yeah, I can see how that contention could be made.
Now, how many of these people who are crossing in these boats are ending up back with you and people like you in Nigeria?
Well, according to the African Union, there's anywhere between 400 and 700,000 of these people that are trapped in Libya. So far, Nigeria, where my work is focused, has repatriated about 5,000. They contend that there's still possibly another 15,000 people left in Libya.
What are they fleeing in the first place? I mean, are they legitimate refugees? Or are they economic migrants?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a combination. I mean, you're seeing some people who are fleeing as a result of what's happening in the north with Boko Haram. But the majority of these people are economic migrants. These are people who are living on that $1, $2 a day, who have zero economic opportunities. The youth unemployment rate in Nigeria is about 25%. So it's a combination of poverty, of a lack of economic opportunities.
So do you think they're sort of the moral right of their migration is as great? Because what they're fleeing is terrible poverty.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every single woman deserves an opportunity to live a life that's dignified and to live a life with opportunity. And so I think the one thing that does tie all of these migrants together is this fundamental right and fight for survival.
And so what's happening to them once they're ending up back? I mean, is this a cycle? Are they trying again to get out?
It's potentially a cycle. First of all, there are people in Libya that do not want to be repatriated, which I think speaks of the desperation and the lack of hope that they feel in their home countries in sub-Saharan Africa. There are others who have repatriated and are being repatriated to the exact same conditions that rendered them vulnerable in the first place. And so ultimately what you're going to have is, if you don't fix the root problems, if you don't address the poverty, the lack of economic opportunities, you're ultimately going to end up with people looking elsewhere again.
Now, you work also particularly with women who are being sex trafficked.
Absolutely.
I mean, how much of this, this movement of people is part of that trade?
I would say, as far as the women coming from Nigeria, I would venture to say that certainly 80 to 90% of the ones who are leaving are being trafficked.
80 to 90% of the women leaving Nigeria are being sex trafficked?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of them are quote unquote volunteering to be trafficked because they're ultimately deciding to do that. But there's a lot of deception that happens. A lot of these women do not know the reality that along the way through Niger and then in Libya that they're going to be raped repeatedly and forced to have sex with thousands of men.